That evening, I didn't sense that I was losing him. It was meant to be a tender night, a simple gathering of dear friends in the cozy warmth of our home. Nothing extravagant, just the comfort of familiar faces, shared dishes, and the kind of happiness that flows effortlessly. I'd orchestrated the evening to lift my husband, Nathan, from the haze that had enveloped him. His job had consumed him for weeks, endless late hours, tired sighs, and conversations clipped by weariness. His silence had become routine, but I chalked it up to the demands of his work. I believed a night of warmth and camaraderie might draw him back to the life waiting beyond his relentless responsibilities. Our home glowed softly, with candles casting gentle flickers across the walls. A playlist of calming tunes wove through the air, blending with the clatter of glasses and ripples of laughter. Everything seemed perfectly aligned, the kind of evening that envelopes you in ease. Guests moved freely between the dining area and the living room, their stories spilling out naturally. Someone mentioned Nathan's infamous battle with a flat-pack coffee table, a tale that always sparked chuckles. I leaned into the moment, playfully amplifying his muttered frustrations, and the triumphant instant he secured the final screw. The room erupted in laughter, and it felt like a dam had burst. Friends joined in, tossing out light-hearted jabs about Nathan's quirks, his shoes perpetually scattered in the hallway, his habit of talking to our dog as if it were a child. We all laughed, perhaps too eagerly, swept up in the joy of it. I thought it was all harmless, a playful exchange meant to uplift. Occasionally, I glanced at Nathan. He sat quietly, nursing a drink, a faint smile touching his lips but never warming his eyes. He didn't join the banter or offer his own stories. I assumed he was simply drained, burdened by the weight of his job. I didn't see the deeper truth unfolding before me. At some point, I noticed he'd slipped away from the group. I figured he'd gone to the kitchen for a moment, or needed a brief pause. The night carried on, the house brimming with warmth and chatter. But as guests began to depart, their farewells echoing through the rooms, I realized Nathan hadn't returned. I checked our bedroom, my stomach tightening when I saw his wallet, keys, and phone were gone. A wave of panic rose, but I tamped it down, convincing myself he just needed a moment to clear his head. He'd return, he always had. But that night he didn't. I sat on the edge of our bed, waiting, hoping, murmuring prayers that morning would set things right. Dawn arrived, bringing a message that carried no anger or blame, only a stark, piercing clarity. His words were careful, deliberate. He was exhausted, not just from work, but from being the butt of jokes in his own home, from masking the sting of laughter. He felt like a ghost in the life we were supposed to share. He said he couldn't continue, not when the person he cherished most didn't stand in his corner. He needed to feel safe, valued, seen, and he hadn't for far too long. I read his message repeatedly until the words blurred together, my fingers frantically dialing his number, only to be met with voicemail. 2 days later, I returned home to find a moving truck parked outside. Inside, the house felt hollowed out. His clothes had vanished from the closet, his toothbrush was gone from the sink. Even his favorite mug, the chipped one with the faded cartoon bear, was missing. The silence was overwhelming, more piercing than any argument. Friends began calling, confused and worried. One mentioned how Nathan had seemed to withdraw that night, shrinking into himself. Another recalled his quiet words as he left. "This place doesn't feel like home anymore." Those words embedded themselves in my heart, a persistent ache. It wasn't just that evening, I came to understand. The teasing wasn't the cause. It was merely the final burden on a heap of pain I'd overlooked. I wrote him a letter, not a quick text or email, but pages brimming with my remorse, my apologies, my desperate plea for another chance. My hands shook as I poured my soul into every word. He never responded. Weeks turned into months. And then an envelope arrived, cold and formal. No note, just divorce papers. I signed them alone, sitting on the couch where we'd once curled up together through snowstorms and spooky films. The house still held faint traces of him, but they faded, replaced by a heavy, unfamiliar stillness. Now, in rooms filled with laughter, I find myself searching for those who aren't smiling. I think of Nathan. How he loved me quietly, steadfastly, without needing to be the focal point. How I failed to reflect that devotion. How I joined in the laughter when I should have been listening. How I spoke over him when I should have spoken up for him. Some wounds don't scream. They whisper, and I missed his until it was too late.